Think about the last habit you tried to build. Maybe it was the gym, maybe it was waking up earlier, maybe it was the business, the journaling, the diet, the reading. The discipline you promised yourself this time would be different. How long did it last? Be honest. For most people, the answer is somewhere between 10 days and 3 weeks. Not because they're weak, not because they don't want it badly enough, not because they lack discipline or character or commitment, but because something happens around day 14 that nobody ever warned them about. A wall. Not a metaphorical wall, a biological, neurological, completely predictable wall that arrives right on schedule every single time and feels exactly like failure when it's actually just physics. And because nobody explained this, most people hit the wall, feel the resistance, interpret it as a sign that they're not cut out for this, and quit. Right before the breakthrough, every single time, today that ends. Because once you understand what's actually happening at day 14, you can never unknowingly quit again. Stay with me. Part 1. The Day 14 Phenomenon. Let's start with the pattern, because this isn't anecdotal. This isn't a theory. This is one of the most consistent and most ignored patterns in human behavioral science. Studies on habit formation consistently show the same thing. The highest dropout rate for any new habit or behavior occurs between days 10 and 20. Day 14 sits right in the center of that window. It's the day the initial motivation has completely worn off. It's the day the novelty of the new behavior has faded entirely. It's the day the brain has registered that this is hard, that this is requiring real energy, and has begun to calculate whether the cost is worth the return. And here's what makes this so dangerous. Day 14 is also the day before the habit begins to get significantly easier. The research on neuroplasticity shows that new neural pathways, the physical grooves in the brain that make behavior automatic, begin to solidify somewhere between days 18 and 21. Meaning the quit moment and the breakthrough moment are separated by less than a week. Most people quit on day 14. The payoff was arriving on day 21. They were 7 days away. Every time. Part 2. Why your brain is working against you. Here's why this happens, and understanding this changes everything because it stops feeling like weakness and starts feeling like information. Your brain has one primary function that overrides almost every other: energy conservation. The brain accounts for roughly 20% of your body's total energy consumption, despite being only 2% of your body weight. It is extraordinarily expensive to run, and as a result, it is ruthlessly efficient. It converts repeated behaviors into automatic routines, what neuroscientists call habits, specifically to reduce energy consumption. When you do something automatic, driving a familiar route, brushing your teeth, making your morning coffee, your brain barely registers it. It runs on autopilot, minimum energy, maximum efficiency. But when you try to install a new behavior, the gym, the early wake-up, the meditation, the business work, your brain has to consciously process every single aspect of it. What time? Where? How? Why? The resistance, the discomfort, the unfamiliarity, the effort. This is expensive, and your brain, doing exactly what it's designed to do, looks for every available reason to return to the cheaper option, the comfortable routine, the familiar pattern, the known behavior that costs a fraction of the energy. This pull back toward the old behavior peaks at day 14. It doesn't peak at day 1, when the motivation is fresh. It doesn't peak at day 5 when the novelty is still there. It peaks at day 14, when the initial fuel has burned and the new behavior isn't automatic yet, and the brain is running the full cost of every single session. That resistance you feel at day 14 isn't weakness, it's your brain's peak effort to pull you back to cheaper ground. Understanding that changes how you interpret the feeling. The feeling isn't, I'm not cut out for this. The feeling is, my brain is working as designed, and I need to push through this specific window to reach the other side. Part 3. The 4 lies day 14 tells you. Day 14 doesn't just feel hard, it comes with a very specific set of thoughts that feel like conclusions, but are actually just the resistance speaking in your voice. Lie 1. This isn't working. This is the most common day 14 lie. You've been doing the habit for 2 weeks and the results aren't visible yet. So the brain concludes, this isn't working. But results from new habits almost never show up in 2 weeks. The compound effect, the phenomenon that makes habits genuinely life-changing, works on a timeline of months and years, not days. 2 weeks in, nothing visible has changed. That's not failure. That's the investment phase. The return hasn't arrived yet because you're still in the setup. Lie 2. I'll start again Monday. The restart promise. It sounds responsible. It sounds like a plan. It is actually the most expensive form of quitting available. Because Monday never arrives with more willpower than today. The version of you on Monday will face the same day, 14, in the same cycle, with the same biology, producing the same result. Starting again doesn't reset the problem. It restarts the countdown to the exact same wall. Lie 3. I just don't have the discipline for this. This one is the most damaging because it becomes identity. You don't quit the habit. You quit the belief that you're someone who can build it. And identity quits are the hardest to reverse. Because you're no longer fighting the habit, you're fighting the story. And the story has been confirmed every time the habit didn't stick, which creates a loop that gets harder to break with every repetition. Lie 4. The timing is wrong. The timing lie arrives dressed as wisdom. Maybe it's not the right season, maybe there's too much going on, maybe after the holiday, after the move, after the project. The timing is always wrong for the habit that your current self doesn't want to build. The right timing is the moment you're in. Because the moment you're in is the only one that's ever actually available. Part 4. The people who don't quit at day 14. So what separates the people who push through from the people who don't? It's not willpower. I need you to hear that. The research is clear. Willpower is a finite resource. It depletes through the day. It varies with sleep, nutrition, stress. It is the least reliable tool available for long-term habit formation. The people who make it past day 14 consistently do these 5 things differently. First, they don't rely on motivation. They treat the habit like a bill, non-negotiable, non-emotional. It gets paid whether they feel like it or not. Motivation is the fuel for day 1. Systems are the engine for day 14. Second, they make it smaller when it gets hard. Most people respond to the day 14 resistance by summoning more willpower. The people who succeed do the opposite. They make the habit smaller, not gone, smaller. Instead of the full-hour gym session, 10 minutes. Instead of the full meditation, 2 minutes. Instead of the full writing session, 1 paragraph. The point is not the output. The point is the appearance. Showing up at reduced capacity is infinitely more valuable than not showing up at all, because showing up is what builds the neural groove. The output is secondary. Third, they expect the wall. The single most powerful shift is simply knowing it's coming. When you know the wall arrives at day 14, you don't interpret it as failure. You interpret it as schedule. Oh, the wall, right on time. And that one cognitive reframe, from failure to expected obstacle, changes everything about how you respond. Fourth, they have a minimum viable commitment. On the hardest days, they don't ask themselves if they want to do it. They ask themselves what the minimum version looks like. And they do the minimum every time, without exception, because the minimum done consistently is exponentially more valuable than the maximum done occasionally. Fifth, they measure showing up, not results. In the early weeks, results are not available yet. The only measurable thing is whether you showed up. The people who push through track the streak, not the outcome. The streak is the evidence that they are becoming the kind of person who does this. And identity, the belief that this is who you are, is the only long-term fuel that outlasts motivation. Part 5. The 21-day shift. Let's talk about what's waiting on the other side of day 14, because this is the part most people never experience, and it is extraordinary. Around day 18 to 21, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, but the habit stops requiring the same level of conscious effort. The brain has begun to automate it. The neural pathway has started to form. The behavior is starting to become part of the routine rather than an interruption to it. By day 30, for most habits, the effort required is significantly less than it was on day 1. By day 60, many people report feeling wrong on the days they miss, not disciplined for doing it, uncomfortable for not doing it. That is the flip. That is the moment the habit has been installed, not as a discipline you maintain, as a default you return to. And that moment, which most people never reach, is available to everyone who gets past day 14. The only entry requirement is showing up through the specific 7-day window where everything in your biology is arguing for the exit. 7 days. Past the wall. That's all it takes. Part 6. The identity reframe. I want to finish with the most important point, because everything we've talked about, the biology, the timeline, the strategies, is useful. But the deepest shift is not strategic, it's identity. Here's the problem with most habit-building advice. It focuses on the behavior. Do this, at this time, in this way, for this long. And the behavior matters. But the behavior is the output. The identity is the engine. The person who never misses the gym doesn't have more discipline than the person who misses it constantly. They have a different answer to the question, who am I? One person answers, I am someone who goes to the gym. The other person answers, I am someone who tries to go to the gym but keeps falling off. Same behavior attempted. Completely different internal story, completely different outcome. James Clear, who wrote one of the most important books on this subject, describes it this way. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Every day you show up is a vote that says, I am this person. Every day you don't is a vote that says, I am not. And the accumulation of votes over days and weeks and months becomes the identity, which is why missing once doesn't break the habit. Missing twice starts a new one, and why showing up at day 14 when everything in you wants to stop is not just one more session. It is a vote, a very specific and very important vote. That says, I am the kind of person who gets past day 14. Cast that vote today. Let me bring this home. You've quit on yourself before, not because you're weak, not because you don't want it, not because you're not the kind of person who can build good habits, because you hit day 14 without knowing what it was, interpreted the resistance as failure, and made a reasonable decision based on incorrect information. That ends today, because now you know. The wall is coming at day 14. It always does, for everyone. The resistance you feel is not a sign you're wrong. It's a sign you're close. The discomfort is not failure. It's the last test before the habit stops being a choice and starts being automatic. You are 7 days from the other side. 7 days. That's the entire gap between the person who quit and the person who made it. Show up smaller if you have to. Show up for 2 minutes if that's all you have. Show up badly. Show up reluctantly. Just show up. Because every appearance, no matter how imperfect, is a vote for the identity you are building. And that identity, once built, becomes the most powerful force in your life. Not motivation, not willpower, not discipline. Identity. The quiet, unshakable knowledge that this is who you are. Someone who gets past day 14. Someone who doesn't quit on themselves. Someone who shows up. Even on the days when everything is arguing for the exit. Especially on those days, subscribe for content on mindset, money, and the hard truths that actually change things. Drop a comment below. What habit are you on right now? What day are you on? Put it in the comments right now. Make it real. See you next time.